can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-Volt Max Power Tool when you buy a Select 20-Volt Max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-Volt Max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-Volt Max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
He was a 9/11 dispatcher. He was dispatched on a 3-week-old baby call that still bothers him. He was going to talk about a domestic violence call where a victim shot her attacker. He overheard it, the frustrations, how he dealt with the trauma before, during, and after on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. If you're on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app, be sure to look for me and follow me. My name's John, the letter J, Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y. You can also search for @LET Radio Show. That's John J. Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, @LET Radio Show on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app. Contact us from Pennsylvania. We have Alex Afever on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Alex is a former 9/11 dispatcher in Arkansas and Pennsylvania, and he's here to talk about 2 calls in particular that really troublesome. And this is like what we don't hear about. We never get to hear their stories. Number one was a call involving a 3-week-old baby that he'll talk about. Another one was the domestic violence call where the victim shot their attacker. He overheard that. His dispatching calls. All that had a profound impact on him. His website is adaptablestrength.com. That's adaptablestrength.com. Alex, thanks for your service and thanks for being a guest on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. But very much appreciated.
Yes, no problem. This should be a very interesting time, and I hope it helps a lot of people who may be struggling with their own issues.
And by the way, this is something I always thought, and until I had some dispatchers on, I never really gave much thought. As a police officer, I never thought they went through anything until we had some on talking about this, and I began to realize how frustrating it can be because I just know me. I want to help. I want to do something. And when you have to hear something and you can't physically get involved, it's got to be tough on you.
Yes, especially for me and the way my personality is. The fun story is that the first time I went into a dispatch center to kind of look around, you obviously can't see me, but I'm a pretty built guy. Like, I've been training myself like 24 years. I have a lot of muscle, as a world record power lifter, all this stuff. I walk into the dispatch room for the first time, and I immediately hear someone yell out, "Don't hire him. He's immediately going to become a cop." And my personality is very much hands-on. I want to do something. There is a whole aspect of dispatching with the struggles of not being able to be hands-on that was something that was contributed to me leaving, actually.
I had a dispatcher on the phone, and she developed chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, and part of it was dispatching a call where a deputy got involved in a gunfight, a shootout, and was shot and killed, and she had a really difficult time. And that was like, I say this all the time, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, because there's a lot of other stuff that occurs.
Yeah, there's a ton. And one of the biggest struggles that people don't understand unless they've been in it is a dispatcher rarely ever gets a conclusion for what's happening. It's one of the big differences between someone who's actually on scene. If a cop goes in, he's there for the resolution, but what we do is we hand off the situation while it's occurring. And so, like the stories that I'm about to be talking about, I have no idea what the outcomes were. I don't know if anyone lived or died. And that wears on you, especially when you think about the volume of calls that dispatchers get. An officer, a firefighter, an EMT, they are limited by the fact that they can only be in one place at one time, but calls come in constantly. So I may end up in a day where on average, I might be receiving 150 calls. That's a lot more than just the maybe 5 to 20, depending on the busyness of a person's area that they may be handling if there's someone who goes on scene. So there's a lot more opportunity for me to have trauma.
The other thing, too, is that, and I guess I'm going to phrase this in a form of question, is that there's no escaping the calls for service, and you have no control over what kind of calls you get.
Yeah, and you can't control the timing of it either. So depending on the organization you work with, it may actually be an automatic pickup that you're set up for. So you could be laughing with someone telling a raunchy story, and next thing you know, your headset beeps and you're hearing someone die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I used to deal, I just speak from my end. I didn't think the dispatchers really cared about what we did, and thank God for a lot of these dispatchers. That's the reason why I'm still alive today. But it was never ending on our end, and I sit there and say, on busy nights, we had 30, 40 calls, and our district was a very busy district, and they're oftentimes stacked up. And we tried to handle all the calls on our post, but I never thought there was any break for the dispatchers. I never really gave that any consideration whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's something that a lot of dispatchers have frustrations with, and it's understandable. You don't know what's happening on the other end. So I've had conversations with police officers, especially, who are like saying, well, you don't see what I see. You can't have the issues that I have. Yet the toll magnifies. There's no conclusion that we get. There's no break. We are going from one call immediately to the next. We don't have something like a drive to a scene or a drive away from a scene to decompress. And so I'll get into a little bit more with the specific calls later, but I'll end up having to go right from hanging up that call into handling the next one without a single break. I don't get time to decompress, and so it would take me hours after the end of my rotation to just recoup mentally because I was so amped up. I was just waiting. I was perpetually at the edge of my seat waiting for the next shoe to drop and have it be a catastrophe.
Yeah, and I think that I'm more open than most people, that I think about what they go through. But at the time, I was pretty selfish and self-centered. And I'm not saying it as a negative. I'm just saying I was more concerned with what I went through than not thinking how it affected them, in particular dispatchers.
Yeah, it's completely understandable. And you are one of the more, I would say on average, one of the more reasonably receptive people to this kind of information, because you would be surprised at some of the kickback I've had when I've tried to talk to some of the on-site first responders about my own struggles. And you can also look at it in terms of what happens after a major incident. Oftentimes, the dispatchers are forgotten, and you may end up collecting the police officers, the firefighters, the EMTs, the paramedics, and have them all in a room together to decompress and talk about the toll that case had on them. And you'll have the dispatchers who were trying to hear their friends in danger, potentially, if it's a dangerous scene, if it's like an officer-involved shooting or something, or even something where no officers were harmed, or it doesn't matter. The point is, a lot of the times, dispatchers just get disregarded because they're just off in the radio room. They don't see anything. They're fine.
And what a lot of people think is that most of the calls are routine, and most of them are, let's be honest, police work is basically boring. It's about, I saw a quote somewhere recently, it's about 95% sheer boredom and 5% adrenaline dump, life and death scenarios, you name it. But it's the life and death things that a lot of people struggle with. And I always say this, Alex, and we'll return, I want to get your feedback when we return from break. For me, it's not the big things, the so-called critical incidents, as much as it's a daily grind. That's the one that wore on me the most. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Return our conversation with Alex Lefevre in a few moments. He was a 9/11 dispatcher. He's a former dispatcher in two states, Arkansas and Pennsylvania. When we return, he's going to talk about a call involving a three-week-old baby, and then eventually we'll talk about a domestic violence call he had, both of which had huge impacts on him. His website is adaptablestrength.com. That's adaptablestrength.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Someone asked, what's the catch? What's the cost? There is no cost for anything on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast website, letradio.com. letradio.com. Again, that's letradio.com.
You can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Turn conversation with Alex Lefevre on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. He is a former 9/11 dispatcher in two states, Arkansas and Pennsylvania. He was a dispatcher in a three-week-old baby call, which we're talking about in a few moments. Also, a domestic violence call where the victim shot the attacker. He overheard that, and both of those calls had huge impacts on him. His website, to get more information about him, what he does now, adaptablestrength.com. It's adaptablestrength.com. By the way, you mentioned earlier you work out the weights. I go to the gym quite a bit. I'm a gym rat. I'm a lot older than you, but I go for different reasons now. When I was on the job, it was to maintain body strength. It was so I could manhandle people when needed. Now it's more about mindset and focusing on breathing and repetitions and meditation and prayer and all that stuff. I'm the guy who doesn't talk to a soul when I'm at the gym.
Yeah, no, I respect that to no end. And it's something that has been if I had to put a strong word on it, it's been basically my savior when it comes to mental health, physical health, and my ability to just cope with all of the PTSD and everything that I've experienced in my life. I've been lifting myself for like 24 years. I was a world record powerlifter, and now I'm kind of combining all of my experience lifting, my experience with trauma and the first responder world, all of the calls that I've been a part of, all of the friends and coworkers that I've talked to with their experiences, and the health status of first responders in today's world is honestly abysmal. Yeah. So I've kind of taken all of that to mean that, you know what, it's time to move on with my life and try to do more to prevent emergencies than react to them. And so I've basically now created my entire business around taking all that I know and helping people be functional and better. And there's a reason why adaptable is the first word in what I do. It's because I make sure that everything is adapted to the individual, and I truly, truly care because I've been through so many different situations. And if I didn't have the gym and I had to deal with this 3-year-old call, I don't know what kind of healthy
I think that
I would have.
It's part of, and I can't explain why, but there's something as simple, and I'm going to use one of the most simplest exercises, bicep curls. There's something about focusing on my breathing, focusing on repetitions that my mind cannot allow intrusive thoughts when I'm doing that. And I become less reactionary. Is that fair for you?
Oh, totally. Totally. I completely get it. It's the only way that I can reach a kind of Zen state where I have one thing to focus on, one activity, and I can just disregard everything else.
Let's talk about the 3-week-old baby call. Tell us about that.
All right. Everyone who has been in the first responder world or is just a decent human being knows that when something bad happens to a child, it is worse than an adult. There's something about it having a child that makes it really difficult to deal with. And with the surprise of working and answering the phone for 911, you never know what's going to be on the other end of that line. And I got hit on this call, and the first sign was probably something like, my baby's not breathing. And you hear that, and your heart just drops. There's no, nothing is going to be good about this call, even if it has a good outcome. And I was talking to the mother, and she was phenomenal. She was amazing. There's so much bad that you get on these calls. Mm-hmm. The amount of stupidity, anger, hate, frustration, everything is insurmountable. But this mom, I had to walk her through giving CPR to her 3-week-old baby. And you know that at that point, she's not in the best physical or mental state, and her entire life is revolving around this little human that's completely dependent upon her for life. And I'm hearing in her voice how much she's trying to hold it together while she is also unraveling at the same time and fighting so hard, because this little piece of her is in such a bad state. This call is, at this point, probably 5 years ago, and I'm just thinking about it and everything that goes around it is incredibly hard. I'm pretty sure if I look at my watch, my heart rate right now my heart rate right now is skyrocketing.
Look, there's things I don't talk about with people because I can't keep. I have two sides of me. One is like testifying in court. I can talk about this about anything as long as I'm testifying, talking and testifying in court. When I get in the emotional side, it's a different story. And there's certain things, situations I will not talk about with people because I don't like the stupid questions.
Oh, those bug me so much. Oh, the amount of people that said what's your worst call you've had? And I just look at them and I just say, you don't want to know. You are happier not knowing that this side of possibilities exist.
One of the things I used to say was, and people would ask me questions at the barbecue, for example, and I got to the point where why do you think I would? They would say, you ever shot anybody? And I'm like, yes. And then turn around and not talk to anybody about it. And they were like, that was a rude response. Well, then I'd say, what makes you think I want to have this conversation with a total stranger over a beer?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have had very similar interactions, and it's sad how few people, when I tell them, do you want to talk about one of the worst experiences of your life with someone you barely know? And sometimes they're like, oh, well, I didn't mean it like that. But the amount of people that responded with, oh, that's a really good point, I'm sorry, is in the single digits of %, and it's really sad.
And we're going to close on this. We've got a break coming up. One of the things that I know that there is a point of contention with, and I love police, trust me, I really, really do. And we'll talk about dispatchers. They're a unique breed in and of themselves. But one of the things that I will say is the judgmentalism that comes from some of these people is just out of control. And whether dispatchers are first responders or not, that's one question that will guarantee to get people going. And personally, I feel they are. They may not show up at a call, but they're there.
Yes. I lived that initial experience with that mother in true 100% investment. And we talked about how I like to be hands-on. The fact that I could not be there to basically say, go sit down in the corner, I'll take care of this, it hurts me to such a deep level.
Yeah,
it is one of the calls that I look back on, and I know it contributes to my end.
One of the things that is very frustrating for me and my old age now is that there's nothing I can do about it. Before, when I was younger, I could, and quite often I couldn't resolve the issue successfully the way I wanted. We're talking with Alex Lefevre. He's a former 9/11 dispatcher in Arkansas and Pennsylvania. He talked about a call involving a 3-week-old baby that was not breathing. We'll return that conversation in a few moments. And we're also talking about a domestic violence call that he handled where the victim shot her attacker. He overheard it, and both of these things caused tremendous impacts on him. His website is adaptablestrength.com. It's adaptablestrength.com. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're going to take a short break. I promise you, we'll be right back. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. I turn our conversation with Alex Lefevre. He's a former 9/11 dispatcher in Arkansas and Pennsylvania. He was a dispatcher involving a call on a 3-week-old baby, which we'll return to in a few moments, get some conclusion on that call. Another call that he handled was a call for domestic violence where the victim shot her attacker, both of which caused tremendous problems for him. His website now is adaptablestrength.com. That's adaptablestrength.com. Check it out. Get more information about Alex and what he does and what he offers. The 3-week-old baby call. Were you able to determine, and I know you're not on scene, were you able to find out whether there's any criminal action involved in that?
No. So I really like the fact that actually there's a commercial break before we got to this end, because anyone who is listening to this show, you're thinking, oh my God, what happened? What was the end result? What is the state of the baby? Like, are they still alive? And now you get to be on the edge of your seats for the rest of your life, just like me, because I do not know. I don't know if that baby lived.
That's a really frustrating part because as a dispatcher, we don't know. We do the best we can. I was never a dispatcher, but as a police officer, you do the best you can. And I'll give you a classic example, and I'm sure you handle lots of calls like this. We have a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old shot, and you're taking their last breaths. And and I wrote an article at letradio.com about, I lied many times to police officers, not what you think. But usually I would say, you're going to be all right. You're going to hang in there. Just the ambo's on the way, all that stuff. And you never know whether or not, as a police officer, whether or not they survived. A lot of people you think are survived, they don't. And a lot of people you think they got no chance, they make it. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. And some of them turn out to be great people, and some of them not so much. There's no justice in the world. Yeah,
that feeling is that the justice should be right is unfortunately unfounded in reality.
I love when people say that, well, at least they got justice in court. No, there's no justice. There's no closure. It doesn't bring that person back. It doesn't bring the loved one back. It doesn't take the pain and suffering and that violent assault away. None of that stuff goes away. Yeah,
it would be great if there was a movie perfect ending where it's like, yes, justice was served. The attacker's now in jail and the family gets to feel good about their future. No, that doesn't happen.
No.
They're still missing the person that was victimized, and they're forever going to carry that hollowness.
And as a dispatcher, you've got that hollowness because you've got a job to do, and it's ultimately about saving lives and rendering assistance as you can, getting help there. I've been listening. We didn't have this back in my day, but those calls were recorded, all that stuff. But now you hear a lot of these calls on television. You'll hear the dispatcher saying, "Police will be at your door in a moment," or "EMTs will be at your door in a moment. They're here. Open the door." All those other things. We didn't have that. We didn't have that kind of capability. And one of the most annoying things I got was the dispatcher would say, by the way, how you doing? There was one dispatcher in particular, I'll tell you a story later on. He'd say, how you doing? I'm like, oh, good. He said, call me. And that was never a good sign. Never a good sign because they couldn't put on the radio what they're going to talk about. You usually get a death notification.
Oh, yeah.
Or you get a call for to investigate the disturbance or a welfare check, and you walk up and there's flies in the eyeballs, flies on the inside of the door, and you're like, oh, my goodness. You know it's not going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, that feeling of just dread, I would have that throughout. Like, the way that we did it was 2 day shifts followed by 2 night shifts. And by the end of that last night shift, my feeling of dread was just perpetual. It would take me, like, I would get home and I would just have to, like, sit down, getting off at 7 a.m. Like, you'd think all I wanted to do is go to bed, but I couldn't go to bed. Like, I was so amped up after some of those rotations that if I closed my eyes for more than about a second or two, I would start to get motion sick because my brain was so active and I couldn't give it feedback to let me know that I was stationary because I was just waiting for another bad thing. Like, that's insane. I'm sitting still and my eyes are closed. I should not be getting motion sick.
Another thing was, and I didn't talk with my wife, and that was something that I now regret I should have. But my thoughts were admirable at times. I didn't want them to worry about me any more than they did. And I'll be honest with you, Alex, I didn't give any thought or concern to dispatchers. It was their life wasn't in danger. Our life was in danger. I didn't think about what they went through, but I can relate to the sleep disturbances. I can relate to so many things you talked about that I was not able to unwind when I got home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's everyone thinks about the phrase, the grass is greener on the other side, but when you go into the world of first responder, there is no green grass. It doesn't matter which flavor of first responder you are. Every single one has their own difficulties that the other ones are just not going to experience. And I'll give you a funny example because, frankly, we've talked a lot of stuff that's like upsetting, but what I do a lot is health, fitness, coaching, and being capable for the job. And one of my guys is a firefighter. And I remember I was talking to him one day, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't get to work out this day. And I was just like, all right, well, why? He's a firefighter, and he was handling a house fire, and he fell through a collapsing floor, and he decides to apologize to me. I'm like, dude, you were in a fire, and you fell through a building. If there's ever a reason to not work out, that's it.
Yeah, and speaking of not working out, I've not been in the gym for almost a week because I dropped a 45-pound plate on my toe, my right big toe. And what did it do? It aggravated the compensation for walking. It aggravated my back. So I got a double whammy going on. And what's my mind thinking about? I'm going to lose all the gains I made.
Well, here, I'll give you a little respite from that fear. There was a study done about how much needs to be done to maintain your like health, strength, and everything. And the very short version of it is that you can maintain your strength and muscle progress by doing 1/9 of the volume that you did before.
But see, that doesn't satisfy my mind. My mind is the ultimate culprit. That's the bugaboo. It's my mind. The more I tell people this all the time, and it's a great secret that someone taught me, the less thinking I do on a daily basis, the happier I am.
Oh, totally. I totally get that. 100%. I understand that.
I want to go very quickly to this call, domestic violence calls, and this is something I struggled with quite a bit. We would get the calls, and quite often they're repeat offenders, but you had a repeat victims, you name it. It was constant, and you could tell, it's Friday night, they're drinking, we're going to get 3 calls at this house. It's never going to end. And sometimes those victims, they pay with their life. Sometimes the so-called suspects or perpetrators paid for it with their life as well. But you had a call where a domestic violence call that didn't go as most people would think.
Oh, no, not at all. So generally you think there's a clear victim in a situation, and it can be very simple. You can go by the stereotypical boyfriend beats girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Okay. This one went another layer. So it was a boyfriend who beat the girlfriend. The problem is the girlfriend also had a gun. So boyfriend beats girlfriend, girlfriend shoots boyfriend, and now I'm talking to both of them, and he's going like, oh my God, I don't want to die. And it's this weirdest feeling of someone being, in this case, not a victim or the attacker. It's both of them are both, but only one of them is in a life-threatening situation. And if you want, this is the kind of call where it is just chaos, yelling. It's both of them talking at the same time. I'm trying to get enough information to establish where the gun is, because I don't want two panicked people with one of them being shot and have one of them still flailing a gun around when the police arrive. Because in a call like this, the ambulance, they're waiting outside. They're not going in. They're not going in. Go in there.
We got to take a short break on the note. We're talking with Alex Lefevre. He's a former 9/11 dispatcher. We're turning the conversation about a domestic violence call where the victim shot the suspect and how he handled that. His website is adaptablestrength.com. That's adaptablestrength.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Be sure to subscribe to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on YouTube.com. Like everything they do, it is free, where you'll find great police videos and episodes of the podcast after they air on radio. Look for and subscribe to Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on YouTube. Best of all, it is free.
You can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Return conversation with Alex Lefevre, a former 9/11 dispatcher in Arkansas and Pennsylvania. He talked earlier about dispatching a call for a 3-week-old baby that was in cardiac arrest. We don't know to this day how it ended, and that's part of the frustration. Another call he is involved in was a domestic violence call where the victim shot the suspect and it became a life-threatening situation. We'll return to that conversation in a few moments. Both of them had a huge impact on him. His website is adaptablestrength.com. It's adaptablestrength.com. I want to go back to the conversation about the domestic violence call. Did that person, the victim, shoot the suspect while they're on the call with you, or is that already before you got involved?
It was just before she called. And so she first called and was like, my boyfriend beat me. And I was like, okay. And I do the whole spiel about, all right, well, first I need to know where you are. And if you want to talk about one of the great frustrations of people in the radio room answering 911 is that so many people are keyed into what is going on, but they rarely recognize that what does not matter until you know where.
That's the most important thing. And is the suspect still there? All that stuff is really important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But it doesn't matter, because if I have a location, I could know nothing else and I can still send somebody. I could have every bit of information possible about what's happening, why, and what their favorite colors are. But if I don't have a place to send someone, I can't do a single thing.
Was this during the
first struggle?
Cell phone? Because life was different before we had cell phones. And I remember being in field training and my FTO yelling suddenly, "Where are we?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And he said, "If you don't know the intersection that we just passed, you can't help save my life." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." But it was different. People called the police from a landline. We knew where they were. Now they've got cell phones, and they're calling quite often from cell phones, and you don't know where they're at for sure.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's also the fact that technology has gotten so good that people calling from a landline is not necessarily a guarantee anymore on their location, because it depends on how the landline is set up,
right,
and if it goes through like a VoIP thing or not, like a voice over IP, in which case people can actually look like they're calling from a landline, have an address attached to it, or they could be in like a complex of buildings, and even though there's 8 different buildings on the complex, every single one of them calls as if they're from the main building's address. So there are so many frustrations. We can't assume that the location we're getting is accurate. With most cell phones that are very modern and up to date on their software and everything, those have gotten very accurate. And generally speaking, you can get a location for someone that's probably within about a 10 to 20 meter radius.
Really?
That's pretty solid, but it's not a guarantee. And especially if you get into someone using an old phone or a phone that does not have a phone plan, sometimes that can muddy things, because then if they hang up, we don't have a number to call them back on. Like the whole discussion about how to get accurate addresses is one of the major liabilities for anyone who is in the 911 world.
So you get this phone call, you get this call for service, and she said her boyfriend's beating her. And did she tell you that she shot him?
It took her a minute. It took her a minute. She was pretty keyed up at the fact that he hit her, until I finally get her to say a little bit more, and she's like, "Yeah, so I shot him." I remember that so vividly that she was like, "Yeah, so I shot him," and I was just like, in my head, I'm just like reeling, because it was just a whiplash moment of, wait, so you're not. You shot him, so you're not actually the one in the most danger right now. And then I had to switch gears from thinking basically standard assault just occurred for a domestic situation. Now it's going into, all right, now we're in the realm of a shooting. And there are tiers, there are levels of seriousness of calls in terms of responses and everything. And those are both very high-level responses, but they require different mentalities when you approach them.
Well, one of the first things I tell people is, and I learned this as a patrolman and really carried it over when I was a sergeant, is that the very first thing you do when you show up for a call for services, you've got usually one or two or three people there. You got to determine whether are they a suspect, are they a victim, are they a threat to you, are they a threat to someone else? And when they say that they shot them, is there a weapon involved, and where is that weapon?
Exactly. And this is one of the things that I think is a little hard to grasp unless you've been in it. One of the great things for police officers, when they show up, they get to have visual feedback.
Right, you don't.
They can look and see body language. They can look and see a weapon. But when it comes to only audio, if I'm getting information, most of the time it's because I had to ask specifically for it. And then based upon the response, I have to then figure out what my flow chart of questioning is going to be as efficient as possible to honestly ensure that the officer that arrives first on a scene like that is going to be in the safest position they possibly can.
Yeah, and that's admirable. I wanted to fast forward. These are just two calls out of a career of many calls. But one of the things you said was PTSD, and it became, I imagine, an issue for you.
Oh, totally. I last night, in knowing that this call was coming between us and that we were going to be talking about all these things, I already started to get into like that old headspace that I used to be in for work. And I had 3 nightmares and woke up yelling 3 times, and my girlfriend had to comfort me and like reassure me like, okay, you're fine and everything. And I have to go to bed with red lights on, so that way if I do wake up in the middle of the night and I'm coming out of a nightmare, that I can immediately see where I am so that I know that, oh, I'm actually in a safe space, like things are good. I'm not about to deal with a life or death situation that happens with no warning, because that's the mindset I had to be in before.
And you said earlier in the conversation you left dispatching. Was this part of the reason why? Completely.
Oh, it's people find things to be usually black or white, and PTSD is one of those categories where people are like, oh, you had a single incident that was very traumatic, and therefore you got therefore you got PTSD.
Right.
Just simple post-traumatic stress disorder. But CPTSD is a whole different category. That's literally complex post-traumatic stress disorder, where it's not a single call that did it. It's the accumulation of many, many small things that lead to a very similar response to PTSD. So instead of me flashing back to individual calls, and yes, I do that. Like, these are two of the ones that I do that for. There are others as well, but for me, the worst culprit is flashing back to that feeling that without warning, I'm about to be responsible for people's lives.
One of the things that I struggled with for a long time, and I can relate to everything you talked about, especially, look, I don't want to admit to my wife, anybody, that I'm struggling with certain things. So I go to bed around the same time every night. I wake up around the same time every day. I eat around the same time every meal of every day. I don't consume a lot of ultra-violent content. I don't watch dash cam videos. I don't watch all that stuff because I don't like how I get. And it takes me a long time to get back to what I call my center. But I don't want to admit to someone that I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that about the TV shows, because I used to love NCIS. I used to watch Law and Order. These were things I couldn't get enough of when I was younger. Now, if I try to watch that for more than 2 minutes, I start shaking. I start twitching.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like really funny, but very specifically, my left leg will start bouncing. That's how keyed into my responses to these traumas are, is that I know specifically which body part is going to behave weirdly because I'm so keyed up. I can't watch or listen to any of that stuff.
That's anymore. The reason why the gym is so important. We're almost out of time. AdaptableStrength.com. That's what you do. Can people contact you to find out more information about what you do at the website?
Yes, there is that. And honestly, I'm really open. If you want to send me an email directly, just alex@adaptablestrength.com. When it comes to this kind of stuff and helping people in this situation, this is what I do. And I do it revolving a lot around fitness. And it could be someone who needs a specific outlet and they're like, okay, I need a goal. I'm like, all right, well then let's combine us trying to 100%. Acknowledge where you are in life and do powerlifting. I
didn't want to think that working out, praying, and meditating was part of my solution. It's a big part of my solution. Alex, thanks for your service and thanks for talking about this on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Both very much appreciated.
Yep, thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
You can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.